How to prepare for your next gig. This is IkeGuitar. Let's dive in. On today's show topic, we're going over how to best prepare for a gig. Now, if you're a musician, I hope and pray that you're getting gigs. The COVID time has been crazy. Gigs have been sparse, which is why it is more important than ever to really hone your skills in preparing for your next gig. Now, I have a philosophy for gigs. It is the idea that your current gig is your last gig, and how you do at this gig, you have to play like you may never get a gig again. Now, that philosophy may seem kind of dark, but it's also kind of true. You never know. If you play a gig poorly, you may never get a call for that gig again. So it's important to put your best foot forward when you go to play music, and I'm here to give you all the tips and tricks on preparing for your gig. So when it comes to preparing for a gig, you'll find a lot of commonalities between preparing for a gig and actually practicing like you do your normal practice throughout the week. How to be prepared for a gig is to be preparing for the gig even when you don't have one. So if you're not practicing guitar, if you're not practicing a certain set of skills that essentially help the genre that you're playing in, you're doing yourself a disservice. Make sure you're practicing your guitar every day. Make sure you're getting your hands on the instrument and learning something new. All of those skills you learn during practice are going to help you when you finally get the call for a gig. The key with practicing for gigging is a lot of consistency over short periods of time. And what I mean by that is you're going to get more out of your practice if you practice 20 times for 15 minutes each, as opposed to an hour and a half of practice 3 times, okay? You want to practice consistently and you want to practice a lot, okay? I break up my practice into 15-minute bite-sized chunks, and the reason why I do that is your mind is not meant to capture all that information over an hour and a half, okay? If you're truly learning, if you're truly diving into a song that you're not aware of or not sure of, and you're learning new material, you really need to give your brain a bunch of information over a short period of time. Take a break, let it digest, and then go back and do that repeatedly. And I've found that when I'm learning songs like this, it's good to have 15 to 20 minute segments, and I'm doing that 5 or 6 times a day. I'm constantly throwing that material at myself, giving my brain a break, and continuing on after that. So be aware of that when you're making preparations for a gig. A lot of consistency and a lot of short practice times really add up, okay? That's how we really learn. So be aware of that when preparing for a gig. The next helpful hint I'd give you in preparing for a gig is to make sure that you guys know the songs back and forwards. That means listening to the songs in its entirety in the order that it's presented on the set, and then going back and listening to them in different orders. You should be listening to these songs constantly to prepare for your gig. It'll help you give you an idea of where the song is going, where the flow is, to help you nail down when you need to hit your parts. Now, along with that, there are some things you can do while you're listening. You can write charts for these songs. I recommend writing a number sheet for songs you're not super aware of. Some songs are going to be a little bit more straightforward, or maybe you have the ear to listen to chords and know the numbers at the top of your head. I'm not always perfect in that, so I like to take some songs I'm having struggles with, maybe the bridge or the hook or the chorus, and write out those numbers so I get an idea of what I know the song's going to do tangibly on a piece of paper. So when you've listened to your songs, when you've gone through your numbers, then you can begin breaking down your parts, okay? And parts are super important for songs, okay? Now, my idea is when you're going out building out your parts for this gig you're going to play, you only need to play the parts on the gig, okay, that are really heard on the recording. You don't want to be playing all this nuance. There's always a ton of tracks embedded into most music, and so for you to learn all 4 or 5 different sounds and really kind of squint and try to hear all those things, it can be kind of racking and unnerving, and it honestly uses up a lot of your time. Now, if you have a lot of time to go through and kind of discern each track individually, that's great, but for the focus of your practice and for your gig, what you really want to nail down is you want to nail down the parts that people recognize and what people hear. Once you've nailed down those parts in your mind of what you want to play, you really have to woodshed them. And by woodshed, I mean sit yourself in a room for 15 to 20 minutes and just work on those parts. And make sure you do those parts across all the songs, not just the ones you like the most. So once again, very important that you diversify the order in which you're playing these songs so your mind isn't set in stone what's going to happen. That being said, it's always important to play those songs in order, but just be aware that your mind's going to work best if you throw at spontaneous information, take a break, and then go back and do it again. So after you've kind of nailed down your parts, gotten a broad idea of what you need to play, when you need to play it, now's the time to go in and look at your rig. Okay, you want to make sure that the sounds you're getting from your instrument match to the best of your ability the sounds you get on the record. Parts are only half the game when it comes to playing music. You have to get the tones too. So make sure you're really diving in, trying to understand what kind of sounds you want to get. Now, you don't want to play a country lick over a Brian May sound. That's going to be totally different. Make sure you're making the music you're playing as close to the record as you can, or at least to what the artist wants. You really don't want to be, a sore thumb sticking out in the middle of your set. That's not cool. And then once you nail down your tones, it's all about just continuing to practice those things consistently, day in and day out. Now, I would recommend memorizing the songs if you can. A lot of people have a hard time memorizing music. I know I did when I first started out playing a lot of gigs, but now I don't use a whole lot of sheets anymore. So it's super important that you might want to go about and memorize those songs. It looks a bit better on stage, and not only can you, move around and be more relaxed, but playing a song by memory is actually a lot of fun and a really good skill to have. So while you're learning these things, really test yourself and actually play the guitar standing up like you're on stage and play through these songs without looking at a sheet music. But if you're playing a 36-song set at a country festival, it might not be super ideal. So you can bring some scratch paper with you to give you some mind jumps to know when to play certain parts or what parts to play and what notes they start on. But overall, I'd highly encourage you guys as you go about playing your sets to try to memorize them. Guys, I hope this video has helped you get an idea for how to prepare for a gig. If you kind of like this video, please consider subscribing. I make videos all the time. I'll go through the national number system very soon to give you guys an idea of how to go about reading music from the national numbers. Very important skill and something you're going to have to learn if you're going to start gigging. So stay tuned for that. Guys, enjoy your day, and we'll see you next time on IkeGuitar.